The letter arrived on a humid August morning, its envelope yellowed and brittle, as though it had traveled through time instead of the postal service. Clara Jennings turned it over in her hands, studying the elegant handwriting, loops of ink that spelled her name with unsettling precision. Miss Clara Jennings, 41 Rue des Hommes, New Orleans. There was no return address, only a wax seal stamped with an ornate M. Inside, the paper smelled faintly of earth and lavender. Miss Jennings, you are cordially invited to document and photograph the Myrtles Plantation for the upcoming restoration project. Your reputation for capturing forgotten places has reached us. Please arrive by the evening of August 17. Accommodation will be provided. Sincerely, Margaret Whitmore, Estate Curator. Clara felt a flicker of excitement. She'd spent the last 5 years photographing decaying architecture, crumbling hospitals, abandoned churches, houses where time had stopped mid-breath. But the Myrtles Plantation was different. She'd heard whispers about it, stories told in bars, documentaries hinting at cursed mirrors and restless slave spirits. By dusk the next day, her car rolled past the moss-draped oaks lining the long gravel driveway. The plantation emerged through the mist like a memory. 2 stories of weathered wood, its white columns leaning slightly, its wide veranda sagging under centuries of secrets. Clara parked near the front steps. The air was thick and alive with the buzz of cicadas. From the open door, a woman emerged, tall, pale, dressed in old-fashioned linen. "You must be Miss Jennings," she said. Her voice carried a faint southern lilt, polite yet distant. "I'm Margaret Whitmore. Welcome to the Myrtles." Clara extended a hand. "Thank you for having me." Her fingers were cold, as if she'd just come from outside in the rain. "You'll find the house interesting. Dinner is at 7. After that, you'll have free rein to explore." Inside, the house smelled of beeswax and old wood. Portraits watched her from the walls, solemn faces in oil paint, their eyes following her steps. The staircase rose grandly from the center hall, its banister carved from dark mahogany, worn smooth by countless hands. At the base stood a mirror, enormous, framed in gold, its surface dim and clouded. Clara paused, lifting her camera instinctively. She adjusted the focus and froze. For a fraction of a second, the mirror didn't reflect her at all. Instead, it showed a dim hallway behind her, though when she turned, there was nothing but the parlor. She blinked hard. The reflection was normal again. Margaret's voice echoed softly from the dining room. "The mirror has a reputation, you know. They say it traps souls who die in front of it. Legend claims the children of Sarah Woodruff were caught inside after they were poisoned." Clara lowered her camera. "You sound like you believe that." Margaret smiled faintly. "Belief isn't required for truth, dear. The Myrtles remembers whether we do or not." Dinner was quiet, too quiet. The other guests, 3 in total, seemed withdrawn. An elderly historian scribbled notes. A young woman in a scarf stared into her soup as though listening for whispers. Every so often, Clara heard faint footsteps from the floor above, though no one had gone upstairs. When the clock struck 9, Margaret stood. "If you wish to photograph tonight, I recommend the old slave quarters first. The house prefers to sleep undisturbed after midnight." Outside, the air hung heavy with heat and memory. Clara crossed the overgrown garden, her flashlight beam cutting through the fog. The quarters were small brick structures, roofs caved in, windows empty as eye sockets. She took several long exposures, the click of her camera breaking the silence. Then a whisper, soft, distant. She turned, scanning the shadows. "Hello?" No reply, just the rustle of leaves. She peered into one of the doorways. Inside, moonlight fell across a wooden chair and a rotting table. On the wall, a handprint, dark, oily, smeared, too fresh to be centuries old. Something cold brushed her shoulder. She spun around. No one. Her camera clicked on its own, the flash exploding white. When the image appeared on the screen, she felt her stomach drop. Behind her, in the captured light, stood a figure. A woman, wearing a faded green turban and apron, her eyes hollow and mournful. Clara's heart pounded. She turned again, empty air. And then, from the direction of the house, a child's voice whispered, "Don't look in the mirror after midnight." The cicadas went silent all at once. Clara backed away slowly, her flashlight flickering, until the plantation loomed before her again, its windows glowing faintly, as if someone was moving from room to room with a candle. But Margaret Whitmore was standing at the top of the steps, perfectly still, staring down at her. Only this time, Clara realized the woman she saw in the green turban was standing right beside her, and Margaret didn't seem to notice her at all.
The night air in St. Francisville carried the thick scent of magnolia and decay. By the time Clara stepped back inside the house, her clothes clung to her with humidity and unease. The grand hallway was dim, lit only by flickering sconces that threw shadows across the faded wallpaper. Margaret was nowhere to be seen, yet somewhere above, faint footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate, pacing across the second floor. Clara tried to shake off the chill crawling down her spine. "Old house," she muttered to herself. "Wood creaks, pipes groan." Still, the memory of that woman, the one in the green turban, lingered behind her eyelids. She could still picture the hollow stare, the faint shimmer of tears that weren't there. She returned to the main hall, camera hanging at her chest, drawn again toward the massive mirror. It stood like a portal at the foot of the staircase, its glass veiled in a faint mist despite the dry air. She raised the camera and clicked the shutter. The flash lit the hallway for an instant and then died. When the image appeared on the screen, her breath caught. In the photograph, the reflection of the hall was the same, except there was a woman standing behind her, again, the one with the green turban. Only this time, her face was twisted, pleading, as though trapped beneath the surface of the glass. Clara lowered the camera, her pulse hammering. She turned around fast, no one there. Then, faintly, the mirror fogged from the inside. Words began to appear, written backward by an unseen hand. "Don't trust her." Clara staggered back, heart pounding in her ears. The letters smeared slowly, fading into streaks. "Margaret!" she called. Her voice trembled despite her effort to sound steady. "Is this some kind of setup?" From the parlor, a soft piano note drifted through the air. One, then two, then a slow, deliberate melody. The keys sounded brittle, like bones being pressed. She lifted her camera again, and the moment she did, the music stopped. Silence. The air was still heavy with the scent of old roses. Then, a whisper, inches from her ear. "Clara." She froze. The voice was that of a child, young, soft, almost sweet. "Who's there?" "Don't let her open the door," the voice whispered again. She turned sharply, but the parlor was empty. Only the piano lid slowly creaked closed on its own, the faintest sound of laughter echoing from inside the instrument. She backed into the hallway and nearly collided with Margaret. "Oh, my dear," she said, smiling faintly. "You look pale. The house can be overwhelming at night." Clara's pulse thudded. "Someone was playing the piano, and that mirror, something wrote on it." Margaret's expression didn't change. "Old homes remember things. They breathe their past. You mustn't let it unsettle you." She stared at her. "Margaret, what did it mean? Don't trust her." Margaret tilted her head. Her eyes seemed to darken just slightly. "Mirrors are fickle things. They lie as easily as they show truth." With that, she turned and glided toward the staircase. "You should rest. Your room is the second door on the left upstairs. Be sure to lock it. Not everyone in this house respects boundaries." The sentence lingered with her long after Margaret disappeared into the shadows above. Clara climbed the stairs slowly, the old steps groaning under her weight. The hallway was narrow, lined with family portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her. The second door on the left opened into a small room with a canopied bed and lace curtains yellowed with age. She locked the door behind her. Her camera still hung from her neck. She sat on the bed and scrolled through the photos from earlier. The plantation exterior, the slave quarters, the mirror. In one of the pictures, she noticed something she hadn't before. A faint figure behind Margaret during dinner. A tall man in a tattered uniform, standing directly behind her chair, his hand resting on her shoulder. But Clara remembered clearly there had been no one there. Her battery icon blinked red. She reached into her bag for the charger and froze. Underneath her camera lens cap was a folded note she hadn't placed there. She unfolded it slowly. "If you see the mirror move, run. By C." The handwriting was elegant but shaky. Outside her window, thunder rumbled faintly. The air thickened and the temperature dropped sharply. The mirror on the opposite wall, a smaller one this time, began to cloud over. Clara stood. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear it. Then a face appeared within the mist. Her own, but smiling when she wasn't. The reflection leaned forward, lips moving without sound. Clara whispered, "What are you?" And in that instant, the reflection.
Clara woke to the sound of humming. It was soft and melodic, a woman's voice, distant yet strangely near, like a lullaby carried through water. She sat up, blinking at the dim room. The air was cold enough to see her breath. The humming came from beyond the door. She checked her watch. 3:13 a.m. The house should have been asleep, but the sound persisted, rising and falling in a slow, mournful rhythm. Pulling on her coat, she crept into the hallway. The lights were dim, flickering as though the house itself exhaled through the wires. Each floorboard moaned beneath her feet. As she passed the large mirror in the hall, she caught a flicker of movement. Not her reflection, but someone behind her. A woman again, wearing a green turban. Clara froze. "Who are you?" she whispered. The reflection of the woman turned its head, though Clara herself hadn't moved. Then came a whisper, this time inside her mind. "Chloe." Clara spun around. The hallway was empty. Only the faint scent of gardenias hung in the air, strong and sweet enough to choke her. She remembered the old story, half legend, half nightmare. Chloe, the enslaved woman who'd been punished for eavesdropping, her ear cut off, forced to wear a turban to hide the wound, the one who had supposedly poisoned her master's children in revenge. The woman she had seen in her camera, the one who haunted the mirror, and the one who, it seemed, was trying to speak. Her hand trembled as she reached for her camera, lifting it to take another picture of the mirror. The flash burst, and in that brief instant, the reflection changed. A plantation kitchen appeared, flickering like an old film reel. Pots hanging from hooks, the smell of ash and smoke heavy in the air. A woman stood by the hearth, her back to the mirror, stirring something thick and dark in a pot. "Chloe," she breathed. The woman turned. Her face was gentle, eyes filled not with hatred, but unbearable sorrow. Her mouth opened, and the humming stopped. A voice echoed from somewhere behind Clara, deep and angry. "You shouldn't have come here." The mirror cracked, a hairline fracture that spread across the glass like lightning. Clara stumbled backward, nearly dropping her camera. Then, silence again. The vision was gone. Only her own reflection remained, staring back, pale and terrified. She bolted down the stairs, her flashlight beam slicing through the dark. The house seemed to shift around her, doors that had been closed, now yawning open, revealing rooms filled with whispers and moving shadows. From the corner of her eye, she saw figures, men in chains, their faces hollow, their eyes accusing. They vanished when she turned, leaving only cold drafts in their place. When she reached the parlor, she found Margaret standing at the piano. "You're up early," she said softly, not turning around. Her voice shook. "Who was Chloe?" At that she went still. The keys beneath her fingers froze mid-motion. Old stories, tragedies that the house refuses to forget. She's here. I saw her in the mirror, in my photos. She's trying to warn me. Margaret turned slowly. Her face was calm, but her eyes glittered. "Warn you? Of what, my dear?" "You shouldn't trust." She stopped herself. The words of the mirror burned in her mind. Margaret smiled faintly. You mustn't believe everything ghosts say. They lie to keep you afraid. But she noticed something then, a shadow moving behind Margaret, stretching unnaturally against the wall. It wasn't her own. It was taller, thinner, and wore a turban. The shadow raised its hand, and the piano lid slammed shut with a violent crash. Margaret flinched, turning sharply, but the shadow was gone. "Go to your room," she said firmly. "Now." Clara hesitated. "Margaret, now!" Her tone cut like glass. Clara retreated, heart pounding, but as she climbed the staircase, she couldn't help glancing back. Margaret stood perfectly still, her face to the mirror now, as if listening. And from within the mirror's fractured surface, something seemed to breathe. Back in her room, she locked the door and sank to the floor. She played back the latest photos. Most were corrupted, static, streaks of white light. But one image stood out. In the cracked mirror, Chloe's reflection appeared again, but this time she wasn't looking at Clara. She was pointing, not outward, but inward, toward the attic. Clara swallowed hard. The note she had found earlier came back to her mind. "If you see the mirror move, run." But curiosity had always been her curse. She grabbed her flashlight, steadied her shaking hands, and whispered, "All right, Chloe, show me." Then, as thunder rolled across the Louisiana sky, Clara began climbing the narrow stairs toward the attic, unaware that the door had already unlatched itself.
The staircase to the attic was narrow, steep, and half-rotted. Each step groaned like an old throat trying to speak. Clara climbed slowly, the beam of her flashlight trembling in her hand. Dust floated in the air like pale ghosts. She counted softly under her breath. 10, 11, 12. Then her foot found another step, thinner and darker than the rest, the 13th. It was colder than ice. She hesitated. For a moment, the house seemed to hold its breath. When she placed her weight on it, the light flickered, and she wasn't in darkness anymore. The attic unfolded before her like a memory. The floor was covered in faded rugs, furniture draped in sheets yellowed with age, and a single rocking chair that moved slowly on its own, though the air was still. "Chloe?" Clara whispered. The name seemed to echo through the beams. The rocking stopped. Then, a faint creak behind her. She turned. At the top of the stairs, a small figure stood. A child, maybe 7 or 8, in a white nightdress. Her eyes were dark pools reflecting nothing. Clara's voice caught. "Sweetheart, are you lost?" The child tilted her head. "Mama says we can't leave. The bad woman won't let us." Clara took a cautious step closer. "The bad woman? Do you mean Chloe?" The girl frowned. "Not Chloe. The one who smiles. Margaret." The flashlight sputtered, then went out. Darkness swallowed the room whole. From somewhere deep in the attic came a rustle, fabric dragging across the floor, then a soft jingle of metal, chains. "Chloe?" Clara tried again.
If you're here, I want to understand. A voice rose, not in English but in an old Creole dialect, the words heavy with grief and warning. The air grew dense, thick with the scent of smoke and something burnt. Her flashlight flickered back on, and Clara gasped. The walls of the attic were covered in symbols, crude drawings burned into the wood, eyes, spirals, crosses. In the center of the floor lay a circle of ashes, and within it, a small blackened locket. Clara knelt and picked it up. The metal was ice cold. Inside was a miniature portrait of a woman with dark skin and a green headscarf. Chloe. "Why are you showing me this?" she whispered. Then the room changed. The shadows lengthened, swallowing the corners. The furniture faded away. The air shimmered, and suddenly she wasn't in the attic anymore. She was standing in the same room, but over 100 years ago. Voices filled the air, angry, shouting, desperate. A woman screamed. Two men held Chloe by the arms, dragging her toward the stairs. "Please," Chloe cried. "It was an accident. I didn't mean." They didn't listen. One of the men held a rope. Clara tried to move, to scream, to stop them, but she was trapped. A ghost watching ghosts. They forced Chloe down the steps. 1, 2, 3. The count echoed in Clara's ears, each number heavier than the last. When they reached the bottom, Chloe's body went still. The rope tightened. Clara turned away, tears burning her eyes, but then she looked back. Chloe's eyes were open, staring directly at her. The vision shattered. Clara stumbled backward, gasping. The attic was dark again, the circle of ash at her feet glowing faintly red. A whisper brushed her ear. "She killed me, not them." Clara froze. "Margaret?" The name hung in the air like smoke. The attic door slammed shut behind her. She ran to it, pulling the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The air grew colder, and in the reflection of the attic's small window, she saw Margaret standing at the bottom of the stairs, her face turned up, her eyes black as peach. "Curiosity," Margaret said softly, though her voice came from everywhere at once. "It's a dangerous gift, Miss Jennings." "Why are you doing this?" Clara cried. Margaret smiled. "Because the Myrtles needs its stories told, and every story requires a witness." The 13th step creaked again, but this time something heavy began to climb it from below. Slow, dragging footsteps, one at a time. Clara backed away, clutching her camera. "Chloe," she shouted, "help me!" For a heartbeat, everything went still. Then the shadow of the woman in the green turban appeared beside her, shimmering like heat in the air. Chloe's voice was soft but firm. "Leave before dawn, or you'll never leave at all." The attic window burst open, wind howling through the room. The locket flew from Clara's hand and vanished into the darkness. And then, silence. The footsteps stopped. The air lightened. The door creaked open behind her. When Clara stumbled back into the hallway, dawn light was just beginning to bleed through the windows. The plantation seemed calm, innocent even. But when she reached the main staircase, she noticed something she hadn't before. There were 12 steps. Only 12. The 13th?
The morning sun bled weakly through the Spanish moss that hung over the oaks. Clara stood on the veranda, her eyes hollow from a sleepless night. Every shadow in the house seemed to twitch with memory. The cicadas had fallen silent, and the stillness felt wrong, expectant, like the world holding its breath. She wanted to leave. Every cell in her body screamed for it, but her car keys were gone. Her bags, too. The front gate, visible through the trees, stood half open, yet when she tried to step off the porch, an invisible weight pressed against her chest, holding her back. It wasn't just fear. It was the house itself. Behind her, the door creaked. Margaret stood in the threshold, her linen dress untouched by dust or time. Her expression was calm, but there was something hollow in her smile now, a perfect imitation of humanity, worn thin. You shouldn't wander alone in the mornings. The plantation wakes slowly. It doesn't like to be disturbed. Clara turned. You're not human, are you? I'm exactly what the Myrtles made me, as are they. She gestured towards the field beyond the veranda. At first, Clara saw only fog, then movement. Dozens of figures took shape among the trees. Men, women, children, all in ragged 19th century clothing. Some held farming tools. Others had rope burns around their necks. Their faces were silent masks of pain. Chloe was among them, her green turban vivid against the gray morning light. Clara stood back, her throat tight. Why are they here? To harvest, Margaret said simply. Every century or so, the house must take a soul to sustain the rest. That is the price of its history and of those who built it. Clara shook her head. You said you wanted me to document this place. Yes, to witness, to remember. But witnesses must pay in kind. She took a slow step forward. The light dimmed, as if the sun itself had drawn back from her. Clara stumbled towards the door, but it slammed shut behind her, sealing her inside the house again. The portraits on the walls began to weep dark streaks of paint. The air thickened. Every floorboard moaned like a living creature. The mirror at the base of the staircase shimmered, glowing faintly gold, and its cracks pulsing like veins. Clara's camera strap tightened around her neck, tugging, choking her. She tore it off, gasping. The device hit the ground and flashed once, capturing an image of Margaret standing before her, though she hadn't moved. The reflection in the mirror showed something else. In it, Margaret's body was gone, replaced by a swarm of pale, wailing faces pressed against the glass from the inside, like insects caught under ice. Among them, Clara saw Chloe, her expression calm and sad. Please, help me. Chloe's reflection lifted her hand, pressing it against the inside of the glass. Margaret's voice filled the air. She cannot help you. She's bound as I am. But the house is generous. It offers choices. The lights flickered. The mirror flared bright, showing two scenes side by side. On the left, Clara running through the gate, sunlight pouring over her face, free. On the right, Chloe's reflection fading away, her image dissolving into the dark. If you go, Margaret said softly, she will vanish forever. The plantation will have no voice left.
if you stay." She lifted her hand to the mirror. She took her place. Clara's heart thundered, "Stay and become part of the curse. Leave and doom Chloe forever." Her trembling hands reached towards the mirror. The surface rippled like water beneath her touch. The whispers of the enslaved filled the hall, a chorus of longing, pain, and release. Then she saw it. In the reflection, Chloe mouthed the words, "Break it." Clara grabbed a chair and swung it with all her strength. The mirror shattered, exploding into 1,000 shards. A sound like a storm filled the house, wailing, howling, centuries of suffering tearing loose all at once. The floor shook, windows burst open. Margaret screamed, her voice breaking apart into wind and dust. The portraits caught fire, faces melting into ash. Clara covered her head, the air swirling with glass and light, and then silence. When she opened her eyes, the house was still. The sun was bright and golden. The air smelled clean. The mirror was gone. Outside, the oaks whispered softly. The fog had lifted. Clara stepped on the veranda. Her car keys lay on the railing. The gate beyond was wide open. She turned once, looking back at the myrtles. The paint looked newer. The shutters hung straight. It almost seemed alive again, but peaceful. A faint voice drifted from inside, barely audible. "Thank you." Chloe's voice. Clara smiled faintly, tears streaking her dirt-covered face. She got into her car and drove away without looking back. As the plantation shrank in her rearview mirror, she didn't see the faint reflection in the glass behind her. A woman in a green turban, watching quietly and smiling. Not haunting, guarding. And far back at the Myrtles, deep in the shadows of the grand hall, a new mirror hung where the old one had shattered, its surface perfectly smooth. If you looked closely, you could almost see a woman inside, camera in hand, frozen mid-step, eyes wide open with wonder. The new caretaker, the new witness. The house was never empty again.